Oh man, do we have a rare treat for you today. 1962 Dodge Polara 500, but not just any Polara 500. This one's packing that legendary 413 under the hood. But before getting into all of it, I'm your host, Jay. Welcome to What It's Like, the automotive channel that doesn't use AI, does not use AI whatsoever. Features cars from the past that you may have never saw or even heard of. We post between 4 or 5 mini documentaries a week with engine episodes. If that sounds of interest to you, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Before diving in deep on this one, it's come to my attention more than one time, and I just want to be transparent. This is way more than a car channel. This is a car community. I don't delete comments. I personally hate censorship. Everybody has a free voice on here. I did get rid of a couple people because of harassment issues, but I never got rid of any comments. I wish that I could find the comment that I got yesterday when I was called a sporting goods store for taking down a comment because they linked somebody else's channel. I love it when people share links. We can all share this space together because everybody does. They all have different takes on the automotive industry, and it's just really cool to see everybody doing their own thing, their own way, and it's all different. It's all good. And that's how I feel about it, and I just wanted to let you guys know that. One more point that I want to make. I have been censored from various different people. Like, I've reached out to Adam from Rare Classic Cars numerous times. He never gets back to me. I've reached out to numerous channels with proposals of being on the podcast. So trust me, I know your pain. I wish that YouTube would just let it fly and just let us like interact like normal human beings, but for whatever reason they need to censor it. I don't get it. I don't get it. 1962 Dodge model lineup. You could get the Dart, which could be had in two trims, 330 or 440, Lancer 170 and 770, and Polara 500, and Custom 880 was at the top. Dodge also offered wagons and had a truck line going from half-ton all the way up to the big commercial. Dodge would offer the Polara in the States from 1960 through 1973. It would play two different size segments during its tenure, being full-size from 1960 through 1961, 65 through 73, and being mid-sized from 62 through 64, offered in 4 generations. 1962 falls in the second generation, which was produced from 62, 63, 64. This would be Chrysler's first B-body car, and as the story goes, president of Chrysler overheard a conversation. Ed Cole, who was the head of GM Car and Truck Group at the time, Ed Cole was saying that they were going to make the Chevy smaller, as in making a whole new car line called the Corvair. Chrysler took it the wrong way, thinking Chevrolet was going to downsize their entire line. Virgil Exner was chief of design during this era. His tenure at Chrysler is known as the Forward Look era, from 1955 through 1962. Chrysler would force Exner and his team to redesign the cars in like a week's time, making them smaller to compete with what they thought Chevrolet's cars were going to be for the 1962 model year. Chrysler would get the shock of their life whenever they saw the full-size Chevys, knowing that they didn't have a direct competitor to compete against full-size cars, because they downsized everything. Exner would downsize both Dodge and Plymouth models. He did all of that, and he would still end up getting fired from Chrysler because somebody had to take the fall, and it wasn't going to be the president of Chrysler. Exner would be replaced by Elwood Ingle, who came over from Lincoln. So a few years back, I worked at a classic car dealership called John Kufleitner's out in Salem, Ohio, as their internet media guy. We had a 1962 Plymouth Savoy with the legendary 413 wedge. We also got in a 1965 Corvette Stingray that was fuel injected. I'm a huge Beach Boys fan, and they are still my favorite band, so I wanted to do a comparison. And oh man, the comments that I still get from that video. I'm still getting comments about titles and names that I neglected to elaborate in the video, so we're going to take a minute and do it here. Beach Boys song, Shut Down. It happened on the strip where the road is wide. Two cool shorts standing side by side. Yeah, my fuel-injected Stingray and a 413. A revving up our engines and it sounds real mean. The part of contention comes when the song lyrics say Superstock Dodge, which has a nice ring to it. Dan and Gene also used that moniker, and Little Old Lady from Pasadena, parked in a rickety old garage, is a brand new shiny red Superstock Dodge. It just has a really nice name to it. But Superstock was Plymouth's performance division. Ramcharger was Dodge. Brian Wilson, who was the creative force behind the Beach Boys, who composed, arranged, wrote, he was a force to be reckoned with, and some say musical genius, but he wasn't a car enthusiast. I don't know, I watched some documentary where some lyricists, I can't say that word, but people that write lyrics said that Superstock Plymouth just doesn't sound as good. It doesn't roll off the tongue like Superstock Dodge. Ramcharger Plymouth, Nowhere in the lyrics does it ever say that it was a Dodge Dart. So I just wanted to point that out because in my mind, I could look at it either way because it has both titles were represented. And both cars, if we're honest, are the same body, just dressed a little bit differently. To expand on the Ramcharger story, Ramcharger started out as a group of Chrysler engineers in the 1950s with only one thing in common: the fire to build high-performance engines for the drag strip. In 1961, the Ramcharger group was able to convince Dodge to put Chrysler's 413 big wedge engine in the engine bay of a Dodge Dart with long ram intakes, which is a spectacle to behold. The 413 would be called the Ramcharger 413, and it was only available as a secret menu option. Let's talk specs. 202 inches long, 76.5 inches wide. It rides a wheelbase of 116 inches. It weighs 3,640 pounds. Price, and this is where things get a bit dicey. The base price was $2,965 for the Polara. The Wedge V8 was a $545 option. The Ramcharger package was $67 on top of that, which would bring $612 on top of the base price, which would be $3,577, which would be equivalent to you spending $37,368.16 in the year 2025, which is an absolute bargain for this car. Total 1962 Dodge production numbers were 240,484 units, of which total Polara 12,500 units. Total Ramcharger 413 212 units. Moving on to engines. Base engine for the Polara was the 361 cubic inch displacement overhead valve V8, 5.3 liters. It was good for anywhere between 305 to 310 horsepower at 4,800 RPM, 395 pound-feet or 536 newton meters at around 3,000 RPM, with a bore of 4.12 inches and a stroke of 3.38 inches. Compression was 9-1, and according to Chrysler's advertisement pieces, this baby takes premium. 3-speed stick. 0 to 60 could be had in 6.8 seconds, with a theoretical top speed of 125 miles per hour while achieving an average of 10 to 12 miles to the gallon. And these are just baseline numbers. Mileage may vary depending on many different factors. Moving on to the middle engine. Moving on to the middle option, 383 cubic inch displacement overhead valve V8, 6.3 liters. It was good for 330 to 335 horsepower at around 4,800 RPM. 425 pound-feet or 576 newton meters around 3,000 RPM, with a bore of 4.25 inches and a stroke of 3.4 inches. Compression is 10-1. When backed with a 3-speed stick, 0 to 60 could be had in 6.3 seconds, with a theoretical top speed of 131 miles per hour while achieving an average of 9.3 to 10 miles to the gallon. Moving on to the biggest and baddest engine on offer, the 413 cubic inch displacement overhead valve V8, 6.8 liters. Now, it's important to note that this engine was available in different horsepower configurations. 365, 385 were for the base, sort of like the base engine. Then the Superstock and or Ramcharger variants were 410, 420 horsepower at 5,400 RPM, 460 pound-feet or 637 newton meters at 4,400 RPM, with a bore of 4.1875 inches and a stroke of 3.75 inches. Compression is 10-1. When backed with a 3-speed stick. 0 to 60 could be had in 5 seconds with a theoretical top speed of 140 miles per hour while achieving an average of 7.7 miles to the gallon. And those numbers are for the Max Wedge Performance version. If you've been looking for this legendary car to add to your collection, I know where there's a place that currently has one for sale. Classic Auto Mall, Morgantown, Pennsylvania, where they have this car and over 1,000 cars currently for sale when recording this episode. And get this, anybody can go there and peruse their extensive inventory in person. They have stuff from a horseless carriage days all the way up until stuff from the modern era. For hours of operation directions and to get the full scoop on this very car, be sure to click the link below after the show. Let's talk styling on this car. Notice it has quad headlights, but notice the placement in the headlights. They're not really side by side. They're kind of diagonal from each other, but not in the same space. Also, notice how far this is recessed in there. Also, how bright, or not how bright, but how big these bezels are. Bumpers. Notice how this bumper raises up right here. There's a lot of design stuff going on with this car. Notice how far this is recessed in. 6 black bars, bright bar, 6 more black, bright bar in the grille. Turn signal indicators right there, just above the bumper. This bumper doesn't have any overriders or bumperettes. Dodge presented in block formation on the nose of the hood, as well as the Dodge logo for the time. This hood is super smooth, no center line, curved windshield with windshield wipers that oppose. It does have these hood lines though off to the side. Well, I guess they're not really hood lines, they're more like fender lines off to the side. Fenders are just bent back. This one's on bias tires, 78-14. Laser straight this car is. I love this blue accent color with the cream. This part protrudes and it says Polara 500. Side mirror is located on the door, mounted just at the bottom of the windshield. Look at the rake on the windshield with this cowl. Drip rails, which run the cabin of the car. And look at this. The brake lights sort of mimic the front lights with their angular approach, but angular in instead of out. The rear bumper design is totally different than the front bumper design. So there's a lot of trim on this back piece here. Gas filler is behind the license plate, which is nice. So just look how this flares out. Same thing with the deck lid profile. There isn't a center line, but just check out the shape in which this deck profile is. This door has a nice quality feel to it. This is the door lock here. Just take a look at the two-tone. The two-tone on this car is done very tastefully. Bright bars separating differences in texture for the vinyl as well as color. Armrest, door handle to pull the door shut, door handle to get out, window crank for the big window, operates like this. Now notice this car, it's not framed out. It does have this piece here, so whenever it meets up with this rubber here, it won't leak. Coming down inside the pedal box, down here. High beam switch, brake pedal, clutch, brake, gas pedal. Just take a gander at this interior. Here is what over the hood looks like. Here's what first person over the hood would look like. On to the button switches and knobs. Going from left to right, headlights. Both panel and headlights are controlled by that single switch. Gasoline gauge, coolant temperature, Dodge logo. Turn signals are located just below that, the indicator is. Amp meter, vacuum pressure gauge, windshield wipers, oil warning light, 120 mile per hour speedometer with odometer, and yes, those are the actual miles. This car only has 10,110 miles, which are documented. High beam indicator, brake release, fan blower speed. Notice there's 3 speeds. Key, heat, and ventilation control. Off, heat, defrost, cool, slider. If you slide the slider to the right for warmer air, ashtray, and radio. Like up above, there are sun visors, and they are on the bigger side. They're long and slender. There's another sun visor over here for the passenger. Rear view mirror and center. On to the glove box test. Here is our test subject. Here is my hand for reference. Here is the glove box in question. And it fits and shuts. That's pretty impressive. Getting in the rear, just fold the seat forward like that. Notice it has blue carpeting on the back and these nice bright bars here. Also notice how it's tubbed out back here a little bit. Transmission tunnel. Here is what the front looks like from the back. Let's take a quick gander at the greenhouse, or the pillar to glass ratio of this car. It is really nice and airy in this car. I love the interior. The two-tone white and blue, it just works. This is what visibility looks like out the back from the back seat. Nice big parcel shelf with rear speaker and back. Notice the rear glass, it wraps around back there. There are also these bright bars on the ceiling, which makes you feel kind of special while you're inside here. Dome light in center. There is a coat hook there, as well as a coat hook over there. Everything found on the driver's side is also found on the passenger side. You got an armrest. The windows do go down back here. They operate like this, just pretty much straight up. And they go all the way down. Is this considered the Darwin dip? It's a joke. Because it dips. Seat back profile. It is very comfortable back here. The seat actually cups you. The bench part is relatively wide. It does dip down a little bit in the back. It's not terribly uncomfortable. It's actually very comfortable back here. The other thing to notice is look at how high up this seat cushion is on both of these sides. So you would have to be pretty slender to fit right here if you were going to sit here. Or I guess you just have a butt cheek on each one of these. Here is what my knee situation looks like. Plenty of space back here. I'm 6'2", so if you're planning on transporting adults in this car, you could totally do that. Also look at the trim. on the panel and how it flows into the door panel. Coming to the under the hood section, hood release is right here, pretty straightforward. Oh man, there it is. It's like seeing an old friend. I got to do a Plymouth Savoy back a couple years ago, and I actually got to drive it. These things are an absolute beast. When it hooks up, it's almost indescribable. If you put $100 on the dash, I bet you couldn't get it. Windshield washer, reservoir bag, alternator, which Chrysler was the first company to do that here in the States. It's got dual horns, one stacked on top of one another. This is a pretty modest radiator for the size of this engine. It's a 413 cross ram. There is a 4-barrel here as well as a 4-barrel there. Coil with distributor in the front. Notice it has 2 fuel filters. It's got the old 12 volt but period correct style battery. Single master cylinder, non-power assisted on the firewall. Also check out the exhaust and how it's all pipes. See the steering shaft going beneath it with the steering rack. And there's not a whole lot of accessories on this one. It's just a one belt system. The fan water pump combo and the alternator. No power steering. But these are pretty light cars. You don't really need power steering. On the positive side, during the early 60s, there wasn't much that could touch this car. If it was a cool day without vapor lock issues, it would take a fuel injection Stingray all day, every day for a fraction of the price. They sound absolutely epic, legendary, mythical car, big glove box, which the camera fits in and it shuts. Beautiful two-tone interiors, easy to read gauges, easy engine access with tons of space to work on this car. I got to drive a Savoy with the 413, and it is a very light car, very fast. It hooks up. The clutch feel was moderate. It wasn't terribly hard to shift or anything like that, but that's where things get a little bit tricky because like every single car drives different. So my experience is going to be totally different than your experience because you can adjust all that stuff. Against it, styling is definitely an acquired taste. The cross ram setup looks absolutely epic, but it's super finicky. It can run awesome and change with the wind. They are very thirsty. Single digits, like maybe 3 at full tilt, but totally worth it. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. 2 scenarios today. In the first scenario, would you rather have the 1962 Chevy Impala with the 409 or 1962 Dodge Polara 500 413 Max Wedge or 1962 Ford Galaxy with a 406. I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to the second scenario. Which one do you like better? Would you prefer a 1962 Super Stock Plymouth Savoy 413 or 1962 Ramcharger Dodge Polara 500 with the 413? Gonna leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below, or you can always send me an email at what_it's_like@yahoo.com. Thanks again for everything that you guys bring in the comment section. And until next time, toodaloo! Welcome to the after show. This part of the video doesn't have any sound or commentary, but you get to see this car and its entirety like you've never saw it before. All the detail, where all the trim goes, what the trim looks like, and just how to reassemble these cars. If you're thinking about getting one of these and it's missing trim, just sit back and take it all in. You can put whatever music you wish in the background. Enjoy.